So, hello everyone again. Welcome back to Conversation with the Masters. Our subject today is about, as way showers, a lot of us are very spiritual. We've been on a spiritual path for a long time. We consider ourselves enlightened masters. And yet, sometimes, not just for us, but for other people, you might find, or we have found that you feel like you're doing everything right spiritually, but you're not necessarily seeing movement in the physical realm. So, like I said, as way showers and ones who's forged that path, sometimes we feel like when this happens that we've gone through this experience, and so we have some ideas about ways that to handle that, and also that maybe can help you along the path too. So I'll give you a little background about how I came up with that this was going to be the subject for today. And that, again, the subject is, I'm doing everything right spiritually. Why am I not seeing movement? So a few weeks ago, I went through about maybe 2 to 3 weeks where I felt like everything was sort of going away for me. And I didn't feel like I was particularly manifesting or creating anything. It just feels like I had like 3 weeks, I guess it was, that if I had plans, they fell apart no matter what it was. Just all sorts of things. So I felt like things falling away from me. And even though I knew spiritually that I had been following the light and the lessons that I learned in the teachings, and even though I knew that everything was always working out to my highest good, I still had that wobbleness that was going on. And it also seemed like when I talked to other people who were spiritual during this time, that they also were feeling some of the same things during the same time. And so fortunately, I kept raising my vibration up through some of the techniques I've learned. But what finally occurred to me was that one of the reasons that this was happening to me was so that I could go through the experience and then be aware of this experience again and share with others about it. So I felt like maybe one of the higher reasons that I went through this was to bring us all together so we could talk about this for ourselves and also for you, the listener. So hope you can shed some light on this along the path for when you might feel like you need this. So who wants to jump in?
Well, I will start with the knowing that I'm pretty sure that we all know this together or have this in common, is that there's no such thing as things not changing, because energy is always active or moving, and your conscious is always active and moving. So I think it's more accurately to say that things change to the same thing again. But they change, but they're changing to the same thing again because it's according to your consciousness. So that's a little bit of, like a law or a technicality, but I think it's empowering to remember that. And then I'll just throw in one other thing, that I try to remember, and the council calls this a law, and it's the law of gestation. So I think that's something to remember. Things aren't changing. In other words, they are, but it's, like the seed that's growing, or the behind the scenes, or the free will that needs to come into play, or all those kind of things. So that's another thing that I remember, is the law of gestation.
Yeah, that's great, Sharon. Yeah, the law of gestation, like when you get pregnant, you have a 9-month, if you're human, you have a 9-month gestation period. Seeds, they have a while. So yeah, that's a really great point. Sometimes things take time. And I like what you said about the energy too, because even though we don't see it, that doesn't mean energy is not moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there seems to be something of a corollary to the law of gestation. And that to me is, as that gestation period comes to be, through free will or through a shift in opportunities to potentially achieve an even higher possible outcome for the betterment of all, then perhaps there is a little bit more tweaking, Sandy.
Yeah,
that
I feel
that
like
is
there's a lot of
still,
tweaking going on lately.
yeah, that may need to happen prior to that birth. So, and I think we are so used to looking at things from the chapter we're in our lives. But if you like widen back and you see that, there've been so many chapters, and you're at a certain point in the story and the arcs, and it changes and so forth, and you go into the next one, and it's just the similar dynamic, but you're just learning
Another
more,
plateau,
experiencing more.
like another plateau, and then this and another plateau.
Well,
Right?
or not even plateau, just like, okay, let's see if we can take it higher, and then maybe we learn, and we dip down to learn a little bit more, to reorient to our human, and perhaps pick up on things we haven't been able to previously. And it's like, and this time, oh wow, I got it much quicker. And I have an example of that, but perhaps because this just happened this week with this time frame we are in, and it kind of threw me for not only one loop, but dozens of loops. And I think I've recovered pretty nicely, and I'm in a very good, I've got a very good perspective on it now, something that really resonates with me. So, but I would like to step back and hear from others first.
And you'll maybe share that with us a little bit.
If there's time, sure.
Okay.
I'll share, Sandy, that I went through a period of this, I'd say for my whole awakening journey for the last, I don't know, maybe it's been 4 years of this journey, but especially in the early onset, for the first 2.5 to 3 years, I was mostly in what I would call sabbatical, where I literally was pulled away from everything. I mean, there was no projects, no nothing. It was just to go so deep. And I found myself during that time, asking many of these same questions. And the guidance that came through at the time was that really kind of stepping into the knowing of us as energy masters, just as you all are talking about energy, and that it's so different. Energy, from their perspective, or at least this is what the channel guidance was. It was, it might be where I'm raising my vibration and I take a walk, and that energy is healing the land as I'm walking, or as I'm driving down the road and I'm just playing music and I'm just so like high vibe, feeling great. It's like they're like, you're leaving a path of that energy like the whole way, and every time you do that up and down the road, they're like, you're raising the vibration of your community. And it was all of these like subtle just things that were just happening in my everyday life that were raising the vibration of things around me. But it was like that unseen. And I found that I had a lot of beliefs that I had to let go around doing and feeling like I had to do so much. I mean, there was a lot of programming to unwind through that process. And I think that's a good conversation for us, because we feel like we have to do so much and do to get, or to see whatever we want to see. And we're just not that. We're moving out of that. So there's some unlearning, I think, unwinding of all of that. But I've been there. Yeah.
Said, Mandy. I mean, unwinding, it just like really nails it. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And that's when I would be like Sylvia brought up, because before we started the recording, I had said I feel like there's a lot of tweaking going on. If we're moving into, just like you were talking about over the sabbatical, as we're moving into, and we're up leveling ourselves and everything else around us, there's going to be times where we're going to have what feels like sabbaticals. And I think for me, there was things that were specifically being pulled away from me because they weren't necessarily in my highest good. So it would leave a room for some other things that were going to be coming in would be at my higher good. But when you're in the middle of this stuff, sometimes, our humans, we can tend to want to go, what am I doing wrong? Am I not doing something right? But it was great that I think these things were pulled away, and I'm not saying I'm not going to have those times again, or happen tomorrow or whatever. And I also think there was a lot of tweaking for me where, because I kept reminding myself, this is where my highest good, this is where my highest good, this is where my highest good, even if it's unseen to me at the moment, that doesn't mean everybody else out there in the universe, you know, isn't seeing it just because my human self wasn't. And that they were tweaking some stuff that also maybe I need to give up right now. And had I not had this solitude time, I probably wouldn't have stopped and looked at a few of these things that I thought needed tweaking.
And
You know, I was
What are
just,
you saying? I'm sorry, Trey, go ahead.
I was just thinking, you know, the whole idea of the caterpillar or the butterfly, when you're in the cocoon, it is completely black for a long time. And yet you're completely being transformed from a caterpillar to a butterfly, and there's no sensorial experience of what that looks like. So what I'm experiencing sometimes is you're right, when I go day to day, and I really thank you, Mandy, that we are doing so much just where we go and what we do. But what I am feeling at night and when I wake up or when I have something where I'm out for 20 minutes is just incredible vibrational downloads that tells me that whole transformation is taking place and that I am on purpose. I am on the path. So if we can, the things we can't notice is what's happening inside of us, and we can't notice, like Mandy said, that what's happening around us that's not showing up in the sensorial way. So I just, the patience of knowing that we are turning into the butterfly, and that butterfly is literally raising the consciousness level of everything around it is enough for me most of the time to just know what's happening.
I love that. I think that for sure we're past the maybe point of logic on this journey, where logic just doesn't really apply anymore. And so, like you say, it's that knowing. And I'm so grateful for the council's wisdom. You know, I kind of feel like it's, you know, I've summed this up before, but it's like our little, it's like the briefcase that we take into the unknown. You know, it's all that wisdom. And maybe these times of, just like you say, this gestation and transformation, it's just, you know, all and soaking in all that wisdom, so that as we come out of it, we've just got that innate in us. It's so amazing, because you're right, Troy, and that's what I'm relying on, that wisdom now, like, to get me through this unknown. Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm grateful for it.
I am also very grateful for being able to choose infinite wisdom. When I choose infinite wisdom every day, like council, like archangels, like extraterrestrial beings, like collectives, are reminding me who I am and who I have forgotten. So every day I am remembering more and more because of the council, extraterrestrial beings, collectives, archangels, my guides, and everything. But before that, I wasn't choosing the infinite wisdom. I was trying to manifest very, very hard. And I made a list that what I was doing not right. Let me share with you. There are very basic, a couple of things I made a list. First one, I was judging everything with my 5 senses. Secondly, I gave my attention to my thoughts, not to my feelings. Thirdly, I forgot to have fun and enjoy my life. And the next one, I took my life experience very seriously.
Well,
Very, very seriously.
Very good.
Thank you, thank you. And I misunderstood the law of attraction. Either I was being taught not correctly, maybe I misunderstood the law of attraction, but it wasn't really working for me. And lastly, I wasn't aware of the vibrational experience. So I was just waiting for my manifestations to come true. So I was waiting, and doing very hard to try to law of attraction. I was putting vision boards on the walls. I was paying more attention to my thoughts, but not to my feelings. So maybe this is something you might want to add to the list, maybe from your side.
in the toolbox, yes.
So good. I love it.
Yeah, great toolbox stuff. And that's what I was going to ask too, like some of the tools next thing. But now we all laugh because we knew what you meant about not, I think it was your number 4. You were taking life too seriously, life experiences too seriously. Can you just, for people that don't, like we got that right away because we're in that conversation all the time. But for maybe somebody who's listening to this on that and may not understand exactly what it meant, could you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think I wasn't really seeing the grand perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I was just paying attention to my 5 senses and my 60 degrees of my vision.
Mm-hmm.
If I receive a phone call, that phone call wasn't really pleasure to listen to, and it really affected me. But if I had a grander perspective, if I had an eye of a bird,
mm-hmm.
or if I had a helicopter to see everything from the top, so I could have said, oh, just a phone call, just this phone call. So I was living in lack and limitation and separation. So that's what I meant, that I was taking my life very seriously. And I thought that I have only one life. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was really holding to it very tightly. So I know I have many lives.
And I think, right, with our human senses, we only see such a small, narrow pinpoint of perspective. And we can make those mean so serious to us when they're really, in the scheme of things, not.
Yeah, culturally, isn't it interesting that we so focus on comparison? So a lot of the misery is, where is my life going in comparison to the people I'm looking at around me? And that's causing a lot of misery. And that's also where are things going is our mindset. That is just common for us to be trained up. Where is it heading? Is it on progress? Is it on time? Is it, getting better and better? And with both of those, we are not in the present moment. And it's in the present moment where we have fun. So when we're taking our life real seriously, it's because we're not in the present moment.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what are some quick tips that you guys use to get back in the present moment when you're going through these times and looking at, oh, things are terrible around me or things aren't going well? What are some of the tricks you use to get yourself back there? I mean, I know what some of mine are, but I want to hear.
Yeah, 3 or 4 deep breaths for me, and just really just getting back to stillness, because stillness is the acceleration point for me. And then it just is okay. Sometimes I have some really good music that is, it's not with words. It's just an instrumental that really has had an impact on me in the past. And I just did it before this session because I was in a place where some things happened crazily this morning and I just needed to get back to stillness. So yeah, it's music and also that meditation breathing that does it for me.
I usually do the 3 breaths, and then sometimes I have to tell my mind stop, like it's going these thoughts that don't serve me, and then I have to say, if something happened, I have to remind myself it's no big deal. It's not that big of a deal. Like it's whatever just happened, it's not that big of a deal. But definitely those 3 breaths, and I'll sometimes I'll have to do channeling for myself and let messages come in. That always sort of gets me back grounded somewhat.
So I was going to mention the same thing. For me, I tap into light language that I will speak and sing and gesture, sign. And, the reason why I hesitated in mentioning that because we know that if you're just learning to connect with your guides or your higher self or archangels or whatever you may like to label that, that when you are kind of your frequency is becoming denser because your thoughts and you're absorbed in your thoughts, that it can be more difficult to connect to that channel. So I would just like to put an asterisk on what was just said, that you have to have strengthened that muscle sufficiently to be able to, use, I was going to say before you spoke, Troy, I was thinking, it's like, let's say it all together. Breathe. I think that the vast majority of people who are on this path and have reached a certain point in their awakening recognize the invaluable nature of breath and what it means to reconnect and get out of the head, and the head and the thoughts have so intertwined with the emotions that you can't tend to get to the emotions until you've disengaged the thoughts, right? And the emotions will lead you to what's under it, energetically, sensory, psychically, and so forth. So as you said, you sit down and channel it, after those breaths, and if I ask myself, how is this for me, or show me, what's underneath this? And that's when, whether I get it in English or in knowing, or simply through the light language frequency, it starts to untangle all those thoughts and all the triggers that they have created for me. But that in turn gives me an opportunity to, as we said earlier, level up to something that you have undoubtedly dealt with at a different point in your expansion and the raising of your frequency. So, and lo and behold, it tends to go much quicker. It goes so much quicker with so much less effort, because you are able to just sort of flow with it. You can have your human doubt and so forth. That's what allows it to come up to reveal itself. But it's not to stay in that mindset, which is the habit, like you were talking about earlier, Mandy, I believe, that the habits that we have, they have to be, what did you say? Untwisted? Unwound. Love that. So yeah, it's powerful.
I also find as humans sometimes, and I find myself sometimes, we're in rebellion. Like, even if we know the right thing to do is stop, take breaths, even if I know the right thing to do is, go channel and go inner and be still and be quiet and slow down to speed up. Sometimes as humans, I think we can be a little rebellious, like the kid who knows they're sleepy, but doesn't want to go to bed at night, even though that's the best thing for them. So sometimes I think we're in the middle of these times when it feels like things aren't moving, when it feels like things aren't working for us, we don't see that. We're in that, I love how Tori had the analogy of the butterfly in the cocoon. Yeah, we're in that cocoon. But we tend not to be our own best friends when we're rebelling against doing the right thing. But sometimes I think even just being aware that that's part of your frustration, how you're dealing with it. Like you said, Sylvia, if it comes up for you, then you can let it go. So don't be hard on yourself if you're feeling like a little frustrated or rebellious in moments as you go through this.
Yeah, I've figured out that rebellion, it's only rebellion with myself. It's all internal rebellion against my very own idea, or to rebel against it. And I have figured, me, it's not the idea, it's the presentation. It's the way I present it to myself. So to make it real simple, my presentation, I have figured out a lot of times will be in the same tone or an attitude out in society you might rebel against. Well, this is what you should do. This is what everyone else is doing. This is what works. Well, this is what the spiritual do, or this is your next step, or, you know, but it's, and all of that might be true, but it's the presentation of it. It's the mood and attitude that I present it to myself with. This is what you should do. You know, this is your only option, or this is your best option, or you should feel like it, or something like that.
So you don't do that anymore. You do something instead now, right?
Well, I just catch it if I can, and I congratulate myself.
Yeah.
For just even being aware, you know, if I can just catch it, or even being aware that that's kind of going on. So.
Well, I find the use of the word right, which you did put in question marks in the email, and I don't know how that's presented, kind of
When we're doing everything
giveaway
right.
is a giveaway. Because as soon as you pose the question that says right, you've already introduced judgment. And it's harder to overcome something when you plant it into it. And that's part of the limitation squeaking in there. So, you know, I don't know what a better word might be to ask the same question, but without the judgment that's implied.
Well, I think the implication was actually perfect, because when you're asking yourself that question, just what you brought up, stop and go, right, there, I'm judging myself. It's just like Sharon said with the should. So
Yeah.
that in itself may want you to take pause and go, what do you mean right? So
Again, you're measuring where you feel like it should be, and it should be is based on someone else or something else. So that the right is all part of the same comparison issue, where you're not in the present moment and living it just as it's happening without any concern. That's what, I guess that's makes so much sense when it says just do what you love and have joy in it, because when you're enjoying and doing what you love, you're not in the comparison mode. You're not measuring it against anything. You're just in the mode of enjoyment.
Yeah.
I've been in a kind of a strange, I don't know, like I'm observing all this kind of happening in my head the last maybe year or so, of this like a mix of consciousness, the human consciousness and this, you know, higher consciousness. And I kind of watch how it, you know, if a situation comes up and I immediately feel judgment, then I immediately feel this higher consciousness come back with like, and usually always this higher consciousness reaction is always to just spread light, or like to douse something, or usually it's kind of an automated like energy coming from my hands or something. It's like, put light on it, just, you know. So it's so interesting to me. It seems like just energy and intention, it's always trying to like catch that thought of mine. I watch and observe this happening all the time. I find it fascinating that this happens. But it's always the minute that judgment creeps up, it's like the other higher consciousness is like, oh, you know, time to like, not necessarily cancel it, but let's just throw light on it, throw light on everything, everyone. If I'm driving down the road and a minute of judgment comes in, it's like, okay, douse them with light. It's fascinating, but that seems like that's just, I don't know, perhaps maybe for me, at least, that is becoming what I'm noticing in lieu of judgment, how I'm getting past this judgment, maybe evolving past it. It's fascinating though. I mean, once we start watching the judgment, oh man, it's just amazing.
I think you just offered us another tool. And I have to say that before you started to speak about how you go about dealing with the judgment when you're aware of it, I noticed that as you were moving your hand, and I'm wondering if anybody else noticed it as well, I saw light around your hands.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff.
both hands. You know, so then you mentioned that you visualize it's like light coming out, and that's what I was seeing.
Hmm. Interesting.
Mhm.
It's like Spider-Man. Sometimes it's how it feels. Like it's like the real, like it just like comes out of the hand. It's so bizarre, but at least that's just how it feels to
Your
me, or the
superpower.
vision. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna borrow that Spider-Man way to do it.
I think we all have that innate ability. We just have to activate it.
I always imagine myself like fairy dust, like spreading fairy dust over,
Yes,
That's
I
my
love
thing,
that.
fairy dust.
Oh,
Like I want to sometimes when I'm really filling in my power and I'll walk down the street, I was thinking, I'm just spreading fairy dust to all these people and they no
Yes.
idea.
Yes.
Those
Oh, I love that.
doubters who may be watching, in the words of my people, they might say, "What could it hurt?
Right.
Fairy dust, fairy
Yeah,
dust."
fairy dust. But I love how we brought this to judgment. I think everybody's kind of brought all this to judgment away, judging ourselves, like who's to say that 3 weeks that I went through, I was judging that as, and that was the other trick that I learned too. We give meaning to things. So if I was feeling like, why is everything like going away and so forth, instead I went, oh, well, everything's going away because something great's happening. So we don't want to judge ourselves in a bad way and judge bad situations, but we also can give meaning to different things always. And we always have that choice. Just like Mandy had that choice where it's become almost automatic for her. She had the choice of spreading light on people or the judgment. Don, were you going to say something early, Don, I think?
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the tricks that I use for trying to stay in the now moment is going to my beach, my paradise, my heaven on earth. It's when I'm there, I try to remember that I'm not there to run the kitchen crew or tell people how to run their beach resort. I'm just there to have a good time. If I want something, I don't even have to call and order it. I just think about it and then let it go. And I don't have to call. Did you get my order? You know what I want? No, I want that little extra stuff on there. Order? Yeah, I was just checking. When it's going to be delivered?
Don't forget the napkins.
Just back and listen to the waves and stay in the now moment.
Will you remind them that you live in the desert? So Dawn does this and she lives in the desert. So she'll tell you more about that.
Hey, listen, she's got the desert. She doesn't need to,
Yeah.
you can have any amount of heaven on earth you choose.
Well, and that's the point that I want her to elaborate on, that she's
Yeah.
Right,
not judging. Right.
but my paradise, my heaven on earth is definitely on a beach.
And so you conjure that, right? In a way. And how do you do that?
Oh, I can feel it. I can feel the sand on my toes. I can hear the waves. I can smell the ocean. Well, being in the desert, there's palm trees around, so I can just look out my window and see palm trees, but I can feel all that. I can feel at night when I'm sitting on the beach with the fire going and hearing the waves. I can feel all of that, and it's just wonderful. And I know I don't have to call the people at the resort and did
So
you
what you're doing is you're not just living in your 3D reality where you can, what you see and touch. You're using another technique where you're creating your own reality. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes. And I like that one better than the one that I'm trying to control and figure out how to get things done and wonder, was that guy just walked by? Did he ignore me? Do they even know what they're doing here? Yeah, just staying in my now moment, listening to the waves and enjoying myself and mm, That's paradise. That's heaven on earth. That's right now.
And
And I
Dawn, it's
think
so
that,
beautiful how quick you get there. I'm sorry, Sylvia, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you can get there so quick. I mean, that's so, I can feel it like immediately with you. It's so great.
I've been practicing a lot.
So cool. So cool.
I was just going to go back to what Troy had mentioned before when he was doing the vision boarding and so forth, and missing that sensory connection. And I think, Dawn, what's so powerful about what you've just described is that was the missing link, right? So that you can have your vision board of, you know, palm trees and ocean waves and, you know, pina coladas or whatever, and a waiter, you know, nicely attending to your every need. But that doesn't give you the feeling. That doesn't give you that being in the middle of it. And in order to really create something in this reality, you need to have that connection energetically. That would be my spin on it.
Yeah, I think, Troy, if you were referring to maybe something, maybe a long time ago, that's how.
Yeah.
You may have other people with the vision boards, but it's not really.
I've never had a vision board, but
Oh, I'm
Maybe
sorry.
I'm
I
not
thought you mentioned something about it.
That was me.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry, Ahmet. I'm sorry, Troy.
He said in the past, using the law of attraction wrong, right? By doing just, yeah.
Yeah, no, but
That was it, yeah. I was trying
Yeah.
to.
yeah, well, you know,
And I do believe that's what
frequency has
Ahmet says.
changed in the
Ahmet
last
says
few decades. So
he changed
we
it.
took it as far as we were able to at any given moment. It's no judgment. I mean, Mandy expressed, I think before the call started, that, you know, she's been on this journey for about 4 years, right? Well, many of us have been on here on this similar journey for 30, 40 years and potentially more, I'm sure. And, you know, you weren't there at that frequency at that time, and it was less available, and the collective frequency was far denser. So, you know, you baby steps, you know.
And I think that's a perfect point too, Sylvia, is that we are in a completely, right now, at this point in time, where we are in the universe, we have tools, techniques. I don't want to say not knowledge like we're learning, but knowledge that has come to us, that's been given to us individually, group-wise, whatever, that we can do it so much more easily and quicker now, if we choose.
And that people who are suddenly being prompted or compelled to explore things that they never thought to do before for whatever reason, being in a pandemic and lockdown and different things that are happening or what have you. And it, you know, it's the perfect time to you know, just jump in the river and flow with it. And the fact that it's flowing a little faster,
Mhm.
and the path is a little smoother because, you know, the water has been rushing through there for eons. But even if we take it to a more human level, decades, many decades, what have you, you know, the path is a little, you know, some of those rocks and logs and such have been moved out of the way. So you can just flow with fewer obstacles and get to a point that you hear about and you're learning about yourself.
Yeah.
Quickly, like Mandy.
And now I feel like I don't have any logs in my way in that stream. I have more twigs or branches, which is pretty amazing. I think I love that. Still, sometimes I have to pluck them out.
And because you know about those twigs and those branches, you can help others along the way.
Yeah, I think that's part of or hopefully that's part of what we're doing here too, is this will help other people that have had this experience, because you can't do it wrong. Just like I'm doing everything right spiritually, but nothing's moving. You can't do it. There's no right, there's no wrong anyway. And that's how the judgment. And even if you did do something that you might do differently later on, even in a 4-year path along the spiritual path, or a 30-year or whatever path, we get better at it, maybe, but we can't beat ourselves up for anywhere we were or anywhere we do right now. All of us are going to have moments where maybe it takes a minute for us to remember to breathe, or remember to maybe seek counsel from your higher self, or from someone else that's a little bit further down the path, or whether it takes whatever your techniques you're using. You can't beat yourself up for ever doing anything wrong. It's not that big a deal. You just do better when you know better, or you have more
It's not
experience.
so serious.
Yeah, you just can't. Yeah, I think that's the trick, is all that judgment does is keep you there longer. I think that's a good place to start. Yeah. And then you get to the point where you can just be like Don, and you just, in 2 seconds, you're in a much bigger reality that doesn't have to be what you see or touch, but is at least equally as real.
And so much more fun.
And you get to experience that heaven on earth by your choice, with or without humidity.
Well, it's because I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I had a friend in town, and we were actually at a resort this weekend trying to order, and the service was not exactly perfect. I'm sure Dawn had a much better experience in her resort. So any other tools and techniques that you guys want to maybe share that people, I think we've had some really great ones. I think when I share this on YouTube, I try to write down the 6 on that you said, but I may have to send them to you and have them make sure I wrote them down and put them in the notes below, because I thought those were really great and helpful. I think everybody's been really helpful.
And the good thing is now the council has good news for us. Time is now. So we just open ourselves, allow ourselves to the heavenly manifestations. So I feel great about that, and I'm ready. I am ready.
And I love
I'm ready for the heavenly manifestations.
Yeah, and everybody has different, I mean, maybe it's the same, different forms, and maybe it's different, I don't know. It's like we all have different, the message always seems to be the same ultimately, but we get sometimes different messengers coming to us. And I think that's so much fun. Like, I met some of the people that I think message to you, I don't necessarily get messages from. And I'm sure same with all of us, somewhat different, but it's just so much fun that it's that we have those capabilities, and we have those methods and means to do that and get those wonderful inspirational messages.
And every time you listen to the messages, you hear something different.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Like we said before, and I didn't mention this time, we've mentioned the council a few times on this call, and this is a part 1 of 1 series for this conversation with the masters. But the council we refer to, we've been, Sarah Landon, sarahlandon.com, she's been channeling them for a while, and we've all been a part of that community. So we've got a lot of great wisdom from them. And so when you hear us refer to the council, that's who specifically we're referring to.
And that is a label, right? It's a label that I believe Sarah was given or chose. But it's really an aspect of us as well, and all of you as well. It's just a question of, have you recognized it yet? Have you been able to, taste that wisdom, that sense of knowing exactly what is being spoken, even while the brain is still trying to untangle things? But you know in your heart, there's truth here. And for me, at least, it's not the label of the council, all due respect, but it is the frequency. And we don't really feel comfortable not having labels for things. How else will we know how to distinguish that from something else?
Or just to refer to it, right? So that, I think, yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Sylvia. So does anyone have anything else they want to contribute?
Sylvia, I love that, because in my channeling too, I've wanted to kind of identify and label, who this group is, and that has not ever been, important or for it to even come through. And so I think that's a very valid point. And I was just channeling, it was just like 2 weeks ago or so, and I could feel a little bit of a different frequency coming through. And what came through is that you could call me old friend. And it was like, old friend, that's as good as it gets. It's like, you can just call me old friend. We've traveled the cosmos, together. I got old friends. So
That's great.
Yeah. Yep. That was it. That's as close as I've gotten in 4 years.
Well, I suspect that the name that we hear or are guided towards, unless our intellect starts to, put its 2 cents in, is that which will resonate most closely with you, so that you can really connect with it. Dear friend, for some people might not do it, but for you could see it in your face. It was connecting you.
And
So,
I don't even ask
Great point.
it. I rarely ask who's talking to me.
Mhm.
So everybody's different. It's all perfect.
That's right. I love that. It's good.
Really perfect. Yeah.
Mm.
cool.
Thank you.
This is, oh, well, this has just been so amazing that I love that we're all coming together, and hope that whoever listens out, hopefully our intention is that that you'll feel some support and encouragement from this, and that
Oh, make sure you say because we really want to be judged well.
Yes, of course we do.
That's facetious, folks.
We still have that human part too. We're not, yeah, we haven't left it yet. We're still
Good
having
to distinguish.
fun experience. And it's
In
fun
those
to be
moments.
liked. It's fun to be liked.
And that is also not taking yourself so seriously,
Right.
right? We should end up with laughter and not, this has been a good conversation. It has. It's
Just
been
like
awesome.
Ahmet said.
But
Just
it's
like Ahmet
also
said.
fun and joyful, and we can laugh about it.
Yeah, not taking this life experience too seriously.
Right.
So, thanks everyone so much.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
good to
thank
have
you.
all.
We'll be back again for another series or individual. We'll see you soon.